account managers are like 90 to 95% women, right? Producers are like 75, 80% men. That's not good for the industry.
I've never worked as an account manager. I've been a producer since day one, but I've spent enough time shadowing them and trying to understand what they do.
You're now competing for talent with the whole country, not just with your local area. Because if you're not remote friendly, there are enough agencies out there that are remote friendly who are more than happy to pay me to steal your people. And it's a win-win-win.
If we continue to think the same way we've always thought, we're going to get the same results we've always gotten.
If you give them a fantastic company culture and place to work and they love being there, it's going to be hard for them to say no to like a $40,000 raise, but they won't leave you for a $10,000 raise.
When you go from being a producer to an agency principal, you have to look through a completely different lens. And I don't always do the best job of doing it because I'm a pure producer at heart. Now I've shifted because I find more joy in watching other people win. And I know people probably hear somebody say that and they think, oh yeah, he's just saying that to get people to like him, or that's the right thing to say. It's the honest to God truth, man.
As an underwriter, understanding why the independent agents are not using me is important. And for you guys, understanding why we're taking forever to quote, or why we keep declining everything that we weren't declining 6 months ago. Yes, super important for us to understand the other side, and as an industry, we don't do a good job of that. I'm gonna learn a couple of tricks, and I will do them at insurance conferences to be memorable, basically.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. Today, I have a very special guest. I have absolutely no idea where this thing's going to go because I can say without a shadow of a doubt, it's the first time I've ever interviewed somebody with a top hat on, and honestly, a really awesome background for his Zoom. We're going to be talking with Tony Canas, the Chief Motivational Officer with Insurance Nerds. And based on what we just discussed coming on before we hit the record button, I think it's going to be a pretty lively discussion and everybody's going to enjoy it. So with that being said, Tony, welcome, man. First time on the podcast. Glad to have you.
Very exciting for me. I run my own podcast and I've been on a ton of podcasts, but Power Producers and the Insurance Guys are the two big ones that I have not yet done because I'm more of a carrier side guy. So excited to be on Power Producers.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot to know that. And, you know, I think that the audience will get a lot from what you bring to the table because it doesn't always have to be about production and sales. I mean, there's a good bit of what we do that we need to understand the carrier side and some of the operational things. Otherwise, we can't maximize our own value to our firms and maximize our own potential. And to be honest with you, we can't get the best culture that we have in our relationships with both carriers and the operational side of the agency as producers if we don't understand those things. And it's something that really, before we get too deep into it, I just want to finish my thought pattern, but you know, it's something that I've always been very cognizant of because I feel like that you see a lot of misunderstanding between, if you want to say, the house divided between sales and service, and it doesn't need to be that way. I've never really understood why it's like that in different agencies, and it's certainly not like that here, but I'm interested in your thoughts on that as we start talking here in a little bit. But before we do, because it's your first time on the podcast, you know, I'm not sure how many people are going to know you I mean, I know obviously you're active on LinkedIn and everything else, but just give them the 10,000 foot overview of who you are and kind of how you got to where you're at. And then we'll just dive in and have a conversation for the next little bit.
Above and beyond anything else, I'm a giant insurance nerd. I spent 10 years working in the P&C carrier space. Have never worked a day of my life in an agency, but I've served agencies as an underwriter, as a marketing rep, and nowadays as a recruiter. So I grew up in the carrier space, fell in love with insurance, did claims, did underwriting, was a marketing rep, went through a leadership development program at Nationwide. My last carrier role, I was middle market underwriting at Liberty. But needless to say, I don't exactly fit into the corporate box of the carrier world. I ended up creating this thing. Well, at Nationwide, I helped run the Nationwide Young Professional Employee Group. At that time, it was called the Gen Y ARG. And I fell in love with that. And when I left Nationwide, really missed that work. So started Insurance Nerds to continue that work for the overall industry. Insurance Nerds is now 10 years old. It was originally a blog about insurance careers and technology. Nowadays, it's a blog, a podcast, a book publisher. We used to have a conference that was TED style and died to COVID. Maybe we'll bring it back sometime. I do chatwithtony.com, which is free career advice for insurance professionals. The podcast Profiles in Risk is the largest podcast in the US InsurTech space. We've had 650 some episodes. The YouTube channel Insurance Nerds, also fantastic. I wrote the book on how to engage millennials in the insurance industry. I'm super passionate about that topic. It's called Insuring Tomorrow. Do a lot of speaking at conferences about that topic, and super active in the CPCU world, in the InsurTech world, just in insurance in general. And a lot of my stuff is all around insurance talent. So either helping people grow their careers in insurance or helping you recruit the right people and retain the right people. And my day job, which I don't talk about enough, I run a little recruiting firm that specializes in insurance and InsurTech. It's called Top Hat Recruiting. The funny thing is that the firm is named after the top hat, not the other way around. And last but not least, I'm also a magician.
Oh yeah, nice. There you go.
Which I have a ton of fun with. And I do it mostly to market the podcast and the recruiting firm at insurance conferences.
Dude, we got to get you on Insurance Guys too, man, because
I,
Bradley's
I
all about doing magic. Like he's always,
really,
yeah, I've got to. So Bradley and Scott are both really good friends of mine
uh-huh.
personally, and obviously we've got professional connection. But you know, we have a private thread on like an instant messenger thread on Facebook. It's the three of us and another buddy of ours, Aaron Robertson in Texas. And he doesn't have a podcast or anything. Probably should have one, but would have a very, very interesting audience based on his personality. But Bradley's forever like taking videos of showing us like things he's gotten at the different magic shops and stuff. So
I
that may
had
be
no, oh my God, I had no idea.
yeah, that may be a connection there, man. I'm gonna say something to him when we're done recording, and I'll let you know what he has to say. But
And the only reason I've never bugged either you or the insurance guys about coming on the podcast is because I've never worked a day of my life in an agency.
doesn't
So
matter.
right.
I don't care, man. I think, that's the thing. I think too many times with the industry, we've tried, and I'm not saying this is your thought process. I feel like it probably isn't, but we try and operate in silos, and I don't think that that's good. Anything in life, you really need to understand somebody else's perspective in order to, have a relationship with them. And this is a relationship business. I know that's cliche, but I don't know that that's ever going to
A
change. I mean,
thousand, never gonna change.
even with InsurTech, and I'm, probably not as involved as you are on the ground level of it, but I certainly invest in quite a bit of InsurTech and try to push the envelope. And I mean, I also use it in the agency as much as I possibly can to make that human connection even better. And I just feel like too many times we stick to what we know and that's it, and I'd prefer to really be able to gain an understanding of what everybody's going through, because it's really easy to say an underwriter is not getting back to you on time, or they've got a bad attitude, or they don't like you, but you really don't know what they're going through. And I mean, it always cracks me up when I hear agents, and I say cracks me up, probably shouldn't say that. It always interests me when I have an agent get back to me and say that, they've been waiting forever for their wholesaler to get them an underwriter, to get them a quote back. And I'm thinking, you know, you complain about the hard market as a single agent. What would it be like if you had 100 or more of you that are submitting business to you, and you're having to turn around and manage it with God knows how many
And
how many companies you're sending those things to? And by the way, probably if it's like everybody else that I've seen haven't done the best job of putting the submission together, and now they've got to come back and get a bunch of
mm-hmm,
questions answered.
mm-hmm.
And so, understanding like the role, I really feel like everybody. So here's the thing, man. This is my philosophy on anything in business, period. When I was in the grocery industry, I went into the grocery industry because I didn't have another job. I needed to make money as quick as I could. I was in my early 20s, and I literally packed everything I owned into my car, drove to my parents' house that were living in Birmingham in the time from Morgantown, West Virginia. I left at 4 in the morning. I got there at 5 in the afternoon, and I called my sister, who was the head cashier at a grocery store, and I said, I don't know if you guys are hiring or not, but I'm willing to do whatever, tell me what I need to do. So she like puts her hand over the phone. I hear her talking. The store manager says, have him come down and talk to me. We're looking for a couple of positions. So I did what I would do it for any job interview. I took a shower, made sure I was clean shaven, put on a suit, and I went down and I walked in the front door, and he thought I was from the corporate office or something, and he hadn't met me yet when I walked in, and he goes, I introduced myself. He goes, what are you doing wearing a suit? And I said, I came to interview for a job. He goes, I don't even need to talk to you, man. You're hired. What do you want to do? He goes, I can have a stocker, or you can be a dairy clerk associate. He goes, the dairy clerk associate job pays $5.85 an hour. Stocking pays $6.35, but stocking's overnight. And in a brilliant move where I didn't do math in my head, I took an overnight job with horrible hours for an additional $20 a week on a 40-hour week. My whole goal in that role was always to get, every 6 months you were given a review and the ability to get an increase in pay. And my job was to master whatever it was that I was doing so that I always got promoted to up the ladder before I had that 6-month review. And so I went from walking in the door with no experience to running a store that they had me run. My first store was like a $15-16 million a year location, which isn't, it sounds like a lot, but it's not really huge. But the point in all of this is they tried to give me that store 6 months to a year before I was willing to take it. And the reason why was because I didn't want to be responsible for anything at all under the roof of that store unless I had done that job or at least understood how that job needed to be done. So I got up at 4 a.m. and met the ladies in the bakery that baked the bread and fried the donuts and did all of that stuff. I learned how to open up the deli. I learned how to close the deli. I understood the food conversions. What do you do with the stuff from the steam table that was on there the day before? We pull the chicken off the bone, we convert it into chicken salad, and we sell it out of the salad case. And I needed to know that because if you're going to hold me responsible for total profit and loss responsibility and sales in a location like that, I have to know how to hold my department managers accountable. I don't need to do the work. I need to understand how the work's been done so I can support them and hold them accountable. That's the exact same philosophy I've transferred to anything that I've ever done, but specifically in the insurance industry, I want to understand everybody's role. I've never worked as an account manager. I've been a producer since day one, but I've spent enough time shadowing them and trying to understand what they do so that I know what their day looks like and how I can best help them, support them, but more importantly, have a general understanding of what the things are that they face that are going to, get things off the rails if that's going to happen. So long way to say it, but I completely think that the industry needs to do a better job of that for that reason, because we really don't know what everybody else is doing.
We need to do, and this goes every side of the industry. One of my most popular videos on the Insurance Nerds YouTube channel is my very favorite and my second most popular. It's called the tier list of insurance jobs. And basically over 11 and a half minutes, I go through 42 different jobs, mostly carrier side, and explain what they do and kind of put them on a tier list. And I use it for career advice. Basically, people call me and they're not happy in their claims job, or they're not happy, in their State Farm sales job or whatever. And they just have no visibility into the other roles in the industry. The more we understand about what the other roles do, number one, the more that we can get people into the right seat on the bus. And number two, also, yes, as an underwriter, understanding why the independent agents are not using me is important. And for you guys understanding why we're taking forever to quote, or why we keep declining everything that we weren't declining 6 months ago. Yes, super important for us to understand the other side. And as an industry, we don't do a good job of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk a little bit about, you said you're an insurance nerd. Talk a little bit about insurance nerds. I've seen it on a few random people's LinkedIn profiles or whatever else. Never really understood like what you guys were doing.
We don't either. We're getting better.
Okay, fair enough.
So it was born as a passion project, quite simply. And it was a passion project for about 9 years. We did become an LLC, I don't know, after like 3 years when the first book came out, which is my book about millennials. But I am extremely ADHD, and Insurance Nerds was designed in the same way. And it never had a revenue model. That was not the idea. The idea was helping people grow. And then we started being really involved in InsurTech by accident. But ultimately, it's a community. We have a great Slack channel. The blog has over 1,000 articles. The podcast has 600 and some episodes. The conference used to be awesome. We used to do it in partnership with Gamma Iota Sigma before COVID. But yeah, ultimately, it's a community of people who are passionate about insurance and are helping each other out. And my partner Nick Lamparelli, who's a two-time InsurTech founder, he had one successful exit with Rethought Insurance, and then the second one he got into a fight with his co-founder and just left. That was Green Shield Risk. Great company also. And Nick is now running Insurance Nerds full time. I still own a third of it, and basically the business model he's running now is basically a marketing firm, and helping a specialized marketing firm around the insurance, helping in foreign insurtechs find the market fit in the US, and helping US based tech companies that are not in insurtech figure out how their technology fits into insurance.
Got it.
Yeah.
And actually, Nick is in my inbox on LinkedIn right now. I sent him the link to sign up so that he can come on the podcast too. It's funny because the mess he reached out to me, and the message started with, "I have some very strong opinions," and I'm like, I don't even need to read the rest.
Oh yeah.
I don't even need to read the rest. I want people who have strong opinions, whether I agree with them or not. And that's something too. Like, I feel like we need to look at things through other people's lenses in that way too, right? I think too many podcasts out there are afraid to have people on who have a differing opinion than what the norm is, or maybe a strong opinion, right? Billy Van Jura is a friend of mine, and if you follow him on LinkedIn, which I'm sure you probably do, he's got very strong opinions, and a lot of them are contrarian to what the status quo says. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I agree with every single thing that Billy posts or says. I do happen to agree with a good bit of it. But I feel like that's really what makes the industry better and pushes everything forward, right? It's not, if we continue to think the same way we've always thought, we're going to get the same results we've always gotten.
The research. Sorry.
No, you're good. Hey, listen, you got two people with ADHD on a podcast together. It's going to be that way. We're good.
The research is super clear that when you add a different perspective, the group gets smarter. Like you can have a bunch of MIT engineers, and you add, a guy from Iowa State with a degree my degree is in business, but with a degree in psychology, who's significantly less smart than they are, and the group overall gets smarter because you're bringing in a different perspective. The diversity, I'm big in the diversity and inclusion side. I know right now is not a great time to talk about that, but quite simply, the research is very clear that the group gets smarter when we bring in differing perspectives. The way that Nick joined Insurance Nerds was actually super cool. I wrote an article after Lemonade started. When Lemonade started, I wrote an article that could be summarized as a love letter to Lemonade, and Nick left me a 3-paragraph comment about how I'm a moron. And how I'm completely wrong. And I did the logical thing, and I replied to it, and we were friends. I replied to it, and I'm like, why don't you turn this into an article? His article is our best performing article year after year, and mine has been lost to time to the point that I can't even find it on Google, even though I don't think I deleted it. And he was right. He was absolutely right. But yeah, bringing in the differing perspective, and we see things very, very differently. We're both deeply passionate about insurance, but I'm a Bernie bro. He's a libertarian. Like, we have very different ways to see the world, and that's why we complement each other very well.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that the industry needs to do a better job of. And I mean, let's take the political environment and set it aside for a second. There's never a bad time to talk about diversity and inclusion, okay? If it's done the right way. And I mean, I think probably a lot of people would surmise that I'm a conservative, right-leaning individual politically. They would probably be pretty wrong. I'm also not left. I'm about as middle of the road as you can possibly get. And I think that the reason that I'm that way is because I can have conversations with people that have a completely different perspective and might even be completely against what I honestly believe, but I can still respect it as their opinion and we can still be friends. That's something that the United States just does not have at all these days. You
We
can't have debate because people lose their temper. You know, everybody's trying to convince you that their way is right and they're not willing to try and see why you might be able to think that way. But from the diversity and inclusion piece, I finally ended up graduating from college, running a grocery store 100 hours a week and going to school at night. And I went to school and graduated, shockingly, from Birmingham Southern College, which is also the alma mater of Scott Howell. And we were there at the same time and did not know that because he was an undergrad and I was in the adult studies program because I was working full time. But the experience and perspective that I got just from that piece of it was I was in class at night with everybody else who was working during the day. They had tuition reimbursement from the big companies in the Birmingham area, Southern Natural Gas, Alabama Power, AmSouth Bank, Bell South, all of them. And many, if not all of them, were middle-aged African American people who were getting an opportunity through that tuition reimbursement program or tuition sponsorship program from their employer to go get their college degree. And they were in mid-level management because they had worked their way up from where they started to that. But the perspective that I got, I'll never forget, we didn't just take accounting and marketing and management. We took sociology and race and ethnic relations and criminology and a lot of these other things as part of a liberal arts education. But as you're taking a race and ethnic relations class and you're learning about the civil rights movement in the heart of the civil rights movement, like the campus where Birmingham Southern was is right where a lot of that stuff took place, and you're sitting there, you're not reading about it from a textbook, you're hearing about it from the people that actually lived it, and it brings life to that conversation. I could read it in a textbook and be forced to surmise my own conclusions or try to inject emotion into those things. But when you hear the stories of the people who have lived it, you have a completely different appreciation for it. And so, I probably catch a lot of people off guard because I ask a ton of questions, man. I mean, I think that's probably one reason why I'm a good producer is because I ask a lot of questions and I want to know the answers to them as opposed to going in and just saying, here's what you need, thinking I know it all, because I don't know it all. But even like when I meet people that are of different ethnicities or I go to a foreign country and I'm talking with people, there's no question that's off the table that's going to come from my mouth. Like I'm going to ask them because I truly want to know the answer. And usually I pre-qualify that by saying, listen, if I ask you a question and it makes you uncomfortable, please just let me know.
I
I'm
do love
telling you, I
that.
want to know the answer to it. And I sincerely do. It's not that I don't have a hidden agenda by asking that stuff. But I think curiosity is good. And I think we need to explore that more. But people need to be open and understand that, the world's the way that it is or could be even better because of the diversity that we have, and we need to embrace that. And I mean, look, we're talking about an industry where we don't do that. Like I'm the first person to tell you, man, I do everything that I possibly can to try and help minorities, females, African Americans, anybody else really. Those are the two main groups that we see in
As
the
an
insurance industry.
industry,
But yeah, we do a terrible
um,
job.
it's getting better. From the 15 years that I've been around in insurance, it's getting better. Uh, but this is a very white male and stale industry. I myself, I'm a Latino male who thinks he's white, but I'm Latino, and my girlfriend also an insurance executive, a very successful insurance executive on the carrier side, on the broker side, global broker. She used to run a small commercial service for the whole country, 250 remote account managers and account executives, basically. Uh, and she is a white female who's disabled physically, like visibly. She uses a wheelchair, and her career has been super interesting. She had gigantic success, but she's pretty convinced that success would not have been the case had she been forced to be in person. A lot of her success happened because her role was remote. And basically that allowed her performance to speak for itself. And on Zoom, you can't see the wheelchair. Right. But our industry, very white male still. I got invited to speak to all of the Westfield Insurance, great company, to all of their top agencies. I don't remember what they call them, but they're like top 30 agencies in the country. I show up and it's all agency principals. All 35 of them are old white men. And I get it. That's the history of our industry. The carrier side is similar. It's a little worse on the agency side. And the only woman and the only person of color in the meeting are Westfield sales managers. And then a lot of what I talked about was the account managers, and account managers are like 90 to 95% women, right? Producers are like 75-80% men. That's not good for the industry.
You know what though? There's something I want to really quick. I want you to finish your thought process, but I want to say something in the middle of that. One thing that I've noticed as a trend is, okay, I think it's important that we're probably talking about the average agency out there listening to us, right? Because when you get into like Marsh and Willis and Aon, I've seen that when you get to that account executive level, which is in my world, that's one step above an account manager, because they're typically managing a book. They're typically getting a percentage of the revenue that they're managing. And the only reason I know that is because I've had several people put in resumes with me to come work at my firm, and that's what their comp plan was. But I've seen a lot more men in that account executive role, and that sort of caught me by surprise. I'm not saying that it's not overwhelmingly women. I'm just saying I've seen way more men in that account executive role than in the account manager role.
And you've made me curious now. I'm gonna have to ask around and see if it's a new thing or if it's a large broker thing.
Yeah, and that's what I wonder too, because I look at it from the standpoint of, if I'm the producer, and look, there are deadly female producers out there. I can list a ton of them that I'm friends with, and I would love to have as many as I could possibly get in my agency, because they're more patient, they ask better questions, they're more detail oriented. They don't need handlers, right? Like they don't need a handler like I do. I need 2 or 3 handlers when I bring a piece of business back in. But I wonder if this would be a really good study, man, because you're talking about the business model's different too. The producers at those big brokerages go out, they open the door, they have the relationship, they get the fish almost all the way into the boat, but then they hand that off to that account executive. And that account executive manages that relationship from then on under the models that I've heard of. And I wonder if the white guy that's the producer wants the white guy that's the account executive because that's their buddy, or they have a better friendship that way. Is that person really more qualified? It would be interesting to see. Maybe I just happen to have a subset of resumes that all show me that men were in this role. I would like to see it on a broader scale, because I do think it's interesting.
Even at the account manager level, so like base commercial lines account manager, independent agency, not large broker. I am starting to see a few young men, which is a very good thing. Here's what I talked to the Westfield agents about. The girls, which is what a lot of agencies, I hate it, but it's what a lot of agencies call their account managers and CSRs, historically have been. Sorry about that. Historically, have been high school educated women who learn insurance and then they stay forever. They're extremely loyal and they become the lifeblood of the agency. They make sure your renewal book continues renewing, right? And historically, they have not been paid the way that the producers have. And I get it. Producing is hard. There's a reason I don't produce. There's a very good reason. But the next generation.
By the way, we actually agree on this. Just so that you know, speak freely. I'm not going to push back.
No. I don't censor myself. You can do that in editing if you need to.
Yeah, I don't censor you either. You're good.
I figured. I look at I'm 42. I look at my girlfriend who's 41. I look at my generation of women. They have out educated themselves compared to. They've always been as smarter than we are. But my generation, significant from when I graduated college in 06 to today, about 60% of college degrees have gone to women. Men are falling behind, and women are running laps around us educationally. My brother's is in college right now, and nationally, right now there are 1.9 women for each guy in college. So basically, that demographic of high school educated women who are happy to run your service team and stay forever and make a lot less money than the producers, that demographic is dying away. So and a lot of those women, my girlfriend was a perfect example. She was an account executive before quitting and ended up on the corporate side of that same brokerage. She didn't want to be a producer. What other path is there at an independent agency to grow if you're already an account manager or an account executive and you don't want to be a producer? What other path is there to grow? So unless we come up with a good path, they're just going to leave, and they're going to be hard to replace because the next generation of women is not interested in a role that doesn't have the career growth potential, right?
Yeah,
And
that's interesting.
I literally and I talked a lot about, hey, you're now competing for talent with the whole country, not just with your local area. Because if you're not remote friendly, there are enough agencies out there that are remote friendly who are more than happy to pay me to steal your people, and it's a win-win-win. Right?
Honestly, man, it's something that's going to become a problem for the smaller
Uh-huh.
agencies, especially in the middle part of America,
Mm-hmm.
because and I've talked about this before, but if you've got an agency in New York or LA or Chicago and they're okay with people working remotely, they can actually go into the heart of America and find really talented people,
We do a
pay
lot of
them
that.
more than they'll ever get locally, but less than what they would have to pay to
Mm-hmm.
source that same kind of talent where they're at. They don't have the overhead because they don't have to put them in an office with all the other stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's not a huge amount, but remote COVID changed the game for all of this
Mm-hmm.
stuff, man. It
There is
completely did.
there is no putting the genie back in the bottle when it comes to remote in our industry, both carrier and broker side. Right now, we're in a weird kind of uh halftime. We're on a we're right now we're in the middle of an RTO fight. Every carrier and most agencies and brokers are trying to bring everybody back into the office. 2 or 3 years from now, not a single carrier or brokerage or agency is going to have won that fight. It'll come. It's funny to me. In the US, we're always talking about supply and demand, but not when it comes to labor. And white collar labor is still labor. It's a matter of supply and demand. If you are Google, if you're Morgan Stanley, if you're McKinsey, if you're the kind of industry or company where kids are lined up out the door, going to school specifically to work for you, and then lined out the door, you say, hey, everybody back to the office, and a few people quit, you replace them, and you're good to go. Nobody in insurance has that kind of employer brand.
You know what? The other thing that I think is somewhat comical is the hypocrisy of the people in insurance that are willing to outsource labor overseas using VAs, but they expect their
Absolutely.
local talent to have to be in the office.
Absolutely. And for those small agencies, I do think we need to address that. You can win that. You can keep your people or find good people, but you have to completely change your culture. You have to become remote friendly, and you have to you can't have this giant hierarchy where the producers and the agency owners are 10 levels above the account managers, and you're gonna have to reconsider your pay. And I okay, let me tell you a quick story. A small agency in Texas, two principals and two account managers. So tiny little agency in Texas. They're very successful. They have a fantastic company culture, just fantastic. They believe in gratitude, basically leading from a place of gratitude, and they only hire people that match that. They are remote friendly, but they're tiny. They can't pay that well. I helped them recruit for a Swiss Army knife to run their service department. The budget wasn't that high. No problem. We can totally help you with that because you've got a distinctive and fantastic company culture, and you offer flexibility. Even if it wasn't remote, even if it was hybrid, we could have made that work. It's not a matter of money. Yes, you're gonna have to come to a decent level. because your longtime account manager, if you give them a fantastic company culture and place to work, and they love being there, it's going to be hard for them to say no to like a $40,000 raise, but they won't leave you for a $10,000 raise.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to get to get your culture up to par. And so many agencies think that oh, we have a great company culture, which basically means we sponsor the local football team, and
Right.
bring pizza in on certain Fridays, like that. That's
It's so funny you said that. That's exactly what I was gonna say. And yeah, you bring pizza in on Fridays. Like
that
that's
is not company
exactly what
culture.
I was gonna say. You know, the other thing too is, man, we dropped an episode of Shop Talk this morning. I had Colby Allen come on, and we were talking about producer compensation
Love
last
that.
week. This week, we talked about the equity conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the other thing that I really have never understood. You know, we want to put golden handcuffs on producers and give them all these incentives to keep them around. But why is it in a level playing field for the people on the service side of the business that are equally as loyal? You never hear about that unless it's an agency that probably has ESOP and everybody has the ability to participate in it. And maybe that's how you level it. But that's always driven me nuts, that you could be a really good producer and have a book that's, you know, a multi-million-dollar book, and you get that reward, but the people who are doing everything they can to help you manage that book basically, you know, are hey, thanks, appreciate it, you know, and that's about it.
Loved both episodes with Colby, by the way. And I worked as an underwriter, middle market underwriter, when I was with Liberty, with an agency in Mississippi, a medium-sized, rather actually really large for Mississippi, but medium-sized commercially focused agency in Mississippi. And they have a really cool setup. They're an ESOP. And basically the rule is new producers come in when they hit validation, right? The traditional 4-year validation process, which I kind of disagree with, but we can talk about that. But basically, when the producer hits validation, before they can before they get equity or whatever, before they basically, when they validate, everybody, the entire staff, a couple hundred people, vote on whether to allow them partnership. And everybody, one person, one vote. Well, guess what we have more of? Account managers or producers? We have more account managers. If your account managers don't like you, if you're an asshole producer, and there's plenty of those, regardless of how good you are at sales, you're gonna get voted off the island. And I think it's a fantastic model. And I don't quite understand how the account managers validate, but anyway, the point is we all own the agency together, and
Sure.
a strong no asshole rule.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's important, man. And I mean, I learned that pretty early in my career as a producer. You know, I had to rely on account managers
Mhm.
a lot of the time because I didn't really know insurance that well yet. I mean, I came in after being in retail for a number of years, and that's really who teaches you the business as a newer producer. I mean, you're going to go out and maybe try and get a designation and do whatever you can. I also have pretty strong opinions that the industry largely ignores continuing education and doesn't take it seriously.
Oh, the,
You
the
know, and we could,
CE
yeah, we could talk about all of that, but
is
I
awful.
relied heavily on those people to teach me, and I always, you know, I appreciate it. And so, I mean, it was nothing for me. Every single time we would bring a big account on, we would all go celebrate together, whether it be lunch or go to a happy hour, and I would sponsor it. And, you know, I basically was building my own culture with my team inside the agency. And so when you said that, the first thing I was thinking of is, man, I wonder how many people really get voted against because they don't know how to take care of the people who are taking care of them.
Speaking of celebrating, and we were talking about diversity earlier, if every celebration is a sports game or golf outing,
Yeah.
that is not attracting, right? That is not a proper incentive. Most women are not into sports, or a significant amount of them, right? A lot of minority men are not into golfing, myself included. Those don't feel like a reward to us. You need to find more and this goes for career incentive trips. It goes for all of that stuff. You need to ask your people what would be incentivizing for you? What would you actually enjoy? What could we
You know
do
what?
to celebrate?
Here's my thing, man. If you're doing your job, you don't even have to ask. You ought to already know. You ought to
I
know what
agree.
motivates them. You ought to know, you ought to know what their love language is. I had one lady that was like, "Listen, I don't care anything at all about going to lunch or anything." She said, "You get me tickets to see Andrea Bocelli and a bottle of gin, and I'll be loyal to you forever." So guess what she got for Christmas? Tickets to Andrea Bocelli and a bottle of gin.
Beautiful.
But the thing is, I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have slowed down to take the time to get to know that person and have that conversation to begin with. And I think really when you relate to people on a personal level, that's really what needs to happen. I mean, producers are allegedly so good at building relationships, but it's really what relationships are they focused on building? You see that. I look at it this way. I say this a lot too. We get wealth confused in our world. We think that if somebody makes a lot of money that they're wealthy. That's income statement wealth. I mean, you can make a great salary and be broke. You have to build your
Oh yeah.
balance sheet. You have to build net worth. You have to have a strong balance sheet. So if we take that financial concept and we apply it to the relationships inside of an agency, income statement wealth is going out and making superficial relationships with people up front to get them to agree to buy something for you. Building balance sheet wealth and your true net worth is making sure you're investing in the relationships that are internal so that you can consistently rely on those people, build that loyalty, and have genuine relationships where you're looking out for each other as opposed to just knowing we're doing a job that pays us to do this.
David, that should be your next book. That is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those things I think about all the time. And I mean, obviously, there's a difference in you transition. When you go from being a producer to an agency principal, you have to look through a completely different lens. And I don't always do the best job of doing it because I'm a pure producer at heart. Now, I've shifted because I find more joy in watching other people win. And I know people probably hear somebody say that and they think, "Oh yeah, he's just saying that to get people to like him, or that's the right thing to say." It's the honest to God truth, man. I mean, when you go out and you write accounts in commercials specifically, you know, yes, it's like gambling, right? You go out, you play blackjack. Maybe you start out at the $5 table, and then, we're losing money at five, or winning money, losing money at five. There's no real adrenaline rush. Let's move to the $10 table. Next thing you know, you're playing $100 a hand, $200 a hand, and that's what you need in order to satisfy and get that dopamine rush that you get when you actually win at gambling. It's why it's so addictive to people, and it continues to get them in a bad situation. The same thing's true in production. And when you go out and win, yeah, when you're a newer producer, every account like gives you this big adrenaline rush. But at some point, you're writing $10,000 revenue accounts, and it's like, no big deal. I just another 100,000 in premium today, and you have to push and push and push. At some point, you can't get that by just going out and producing for yourself. At least I'm not able to do that. But what I do enjoy doing and what gives me a rush now is watching my oldest son close a deal because I was able to help him do that, or have a newer producer come into the agency and teach them how to do what I've done and watch them take the skill set that they've learned and go out and earn for their own family. I get a lot more joy and satisfaction out of that every single day than what I ever got producing. And for those of you who think I'm nuts, why don't you try it sometime? I can assure you it'll make you a better person and it'll make you more thankful for what you've got.
Agreed.
So
I
let's
agree
let's
completely.
So let's talk about the I mean, we've been going for a little while. Talk about the magic thing, man. Where did that come from? I mean, how
Uh,
did you get interested in it?
I, I used to do magic as a child when I was like 7 or 8 years old, growing up in Costa Rica. My grandparents would had an apartment in Miami, and whenever we came to the U.S. twice a year or whatever, I spent my summers in Miami a lot. I buy a magic trick at a magic shop kind of thing, and do it for the family. And then I moved on. And then my brand for a long time was a Superman shirt, red jacket. That is my author photo on the back of my book, and it's what I wore to speak at a lot of conferences. COVID hits, and all of a sudden, if they're wearing a mask, I have a hard time recognizing people. It's 2021. We're getting back out on the road for conferences, which is my favorite part of everything I do. And I'm afraid that people won't be able to recognize me. I'm also 5'7", which is perfectly average for a Costa Rican male, but 3 inches short for the US. So I'm afraid people won't be able to recognize me. So I buy the black top hat, the leather black top hat. It doesn't fit in my suitcase. So basically, whenever I go to a conference, I'm wearing it on the train to the airport. I'm wearing it at the Delta Lounge. I'm wearing it on the plane. I'm wearing it the whole time. Okay. So now I wear a top hat to go to the grocery store, but that's how it started. I am coming back from InsurTech Connect 2021. This is my Super Bowl. Maybe 50% of my revenue every year comes from relationships that I build at ITC. So I haven't slept for a week. I've slept like 3 hours a night. And the way I do ITC, ITC is theoretically a Tuesday through Thursday conference. The reality is it really starts on Monday. The real fanatics come in on Sunday. So I come in on Sunday, and then I would do the whole thing. I check out of my room at the Luxor on Thursday, and do the whole conference. And then Thursday night there's a concert, and then once that clears out, I close down the last bar. And when I can't find, like, I literally don't sleep that night. And when I can't find anybody else to chat with, then I head to the airport and catch my direct Delta flight, 7 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever. So anyway, I'm at the airport, and a random human, not an insurance person, asks me, "Are you a magician?" And I go into an identity crisis, and remember my childhood, and I say, "Why not?" And I jump back into it. So the idea, so 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, when I jumped back into it, the idea was quite simple. I want to learn a couple of tricks, and I will do them at insurance conferences to be memorable, basically. And it grew into an obsession. And think about it this way: I run my own little recruiting firm. So basically, what I did is I turned my childhood hobby into a tax-deductible marketing expense for my business, and I have so much fun doing it. My business cards are printed on a playing card, and they have all the crazy stuff that I do, including the magic. So basically I'm throwing like 10 grand a year into becoming a serious magician. And then we go to Argentina, we come back. So we spent a year in Argentina. My girlfriend wanted to learn Spanish, came back. We're still living in Atlanta, Georgia, but now we're living right on the Beltline, right? So a multi-mile path. People go biking, people go take their dogs out. I go skating. My elevator drops me off on the Beltline. I now go and do street magic on the Beltline. I grab the Instagram Beltline magician, and last week at PLRB was the first time they hired me to do magic for the conference, which was amazing. And I'm reinvesting that money to go to magic school. So 2 weeks from now, I'm going to the Jeff McBride School of Magic and Mystery, which is the #1 magic school in the country, for a 7-day intensive residence class. And awesome. I'm turning into a part-time business.
That's cool though, man. I mean, that's the other thing. The industry, and even though you and I sit in different seats, gives us the flexibility to kind of chase whatever we want to do. Yes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, one of the things I always remember the where, when, and details around the first time I ever meet somebody. And I remember the first time we met was at the Agency Success Conference in Phoenix a couple years ago. And it will be forever etched into my mind when Damon John came out wearing a top hat, the expression on his face when he looked out, and he's like, because that was his shtick, right? Like that was the first time he had ever come out to do a keynote like that. And there was literally somebody else with the top hat in the audience. And he was like, "You got to be kidding me. This guy's got a top hat." He was speechless.
That conference was amazing. I'm so sad that they haven't done it again. Please do it again. I have not found a replacement. I have not found an agency conference that I like as much as I like that one. And I remember that's when I first met you, because I showed up on the pre-day that you can buy a ticket for the first day, and I was very aware of you, but I hadn't actually met you. So you speak, and it was awesome. I completely understood why you're like, but yeah, I got it. And then it was like the second or third day, like one of the last days. So I've been wearing the top hat the whole time, meeting people, right? Everybody's connecting me to the top hat, and my brand has been built with the top hat, not only at the conference, but in insurance. I show up late to the Damon John thing, right? I'm like 15 minutes late at the back trying to be quiet in this gigantic auditorium. And he, like, all I see is him taking the top hat and being like, come on. And I have no idea what's going on until later. People told me, people were like, that was amazing. And I'm like, what happened?
Yep,
That was
absolutely.
awesome. That was so awesome.
It was great. It was, I will never forget that moment. So listen, we're going to wrap up. How do they get a hold of you, man? And this is only going to be the first time. You'll definitely be back on the podcast.
Awesome.
Really have
Awesome.
enjoyed the
Awesome.
conversation. You've got an open
Easiest.
invite anytime you want.
Thank you. Easiest thing, what I always tell people, add me on LinkedIn. I'm extremely easy to find. Tony Canas, and I'm the one with all the letters after his name. And this is my profile photo, right? The magician card drawing with me as the ace of hearts. I'm extremely easy to find. Add me on LinkedIn. Take advantage to add me now because I'm at 27,000 connections. LinkedIn only allows 30,000. After that, you'll only be able to follow me, which means that you can't easily message me. But the easiest thing, add me on LinkedIn, and I post pretty much every day. You'll see all the stuff, and if you have a question, you'll be able to reach out. If you need help recruiting, we do a ton of account managers, some producers. Happy to chat. If you want to chat about how to retain your younger professionals, happy to chat. If you are an insurance professional who's not happy in their role, chat with Tony.com. I will, for free, point you in the right direction, help you figure out where to go.
Good deal. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on. I think this is a great episode. We touched on a lot of things, and there's probably a lot more that we can talk about. So, sincerely, thank you. Really appreciate the time you've spent here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap up this episode. We'll catch you on the next one. See you.